Write that down, Fumi Saito.
Write that down.
Write that.
With Fumi Saito and Justin Nipper.
Write that down, Fumi Saito. Write that down, Fumi Saito.
Hey patrons, welcome back. I'm Justin Nipper, and this is Write That Down with Fumi Saito. Fumi, hello.
Hello from Tokyo.
How are you doing? Did you have a
Good.
good weekend?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got some pretty good feedback last week about our first
Keiji
part one
Muto.
of Keiji
Yeah.
Muto. Yeah. So thanks to everyone with the kind words. Robert Silva, thank you so much.
Thank you very
We're gonna
much.
start with part 2 today. So let's start. We left off around kind of 1995, 1994 Keiji Muto's career. So he's cooking. He's on top in New Japan. He's the guy. In 1993, he won the NWA title from Masachono. We were talking about
we got corrected.
yeah.
Right, because I
There's a
was
lot of
talking
stuff
top
to
of my
go through.
head, and not that I had. Some people said it was this guy's an encyclopedia of Japanese wrestling, but no, I just some things. It's not like I remember every little thing and dates and
Well, I
years.
think you know more than everyone else, though.
But not the year and dates. I
we'll
was
figure that out.
there and I watched it, and I'm more into what really happened around that time period.
Yeah, that's the important.
Yeah, and so to collect, to go back, yes, Great Muta, not the Keiji Muto version of it, but the Great Muta beat Chono to become NWA World Heavyweight Champion. 95, right? I'm sorry, 93. 93 January. See, I'm mistaking. See, that was like, we got to go back to 91, let's say. 91 March, Tokyo Dome.
Okay.
Fujinami beat Ric Flair in a very controversial
Yes.
fashion. And in Japan, Fujinami won. And WCW television, 2 referees and over-the-top rope finish and all these things. And the title quickly returned to Flair. In Japan, people were led to believe Fujinami won the title, just like the old days, right? But in the following May, May 19th, 1991, Fujinami flew out, back to the States, St. Petersburg. That was a super brawl where Flair defending his NWA World Heavyweight title against Fujinami. But in Japan, it was like a title up for grab. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting. But anyhow, it was Chono who won the vacant NWA title at the G1 climax of summer of 92. So it was
He became Mr.
G1.
for
Yeah.
August.
Yeah. And also it was funny that WCW program and WCW magazine at the time said it was big upset. Chono beat Rick Rude to become NWA title, right? It wasn't even a big upset if you lived in Japan. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it was instead, it was like, who the hell is Rick Rude kind of thing.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
I think that I felt like I saw that when I would go to the Tokyo Dome when the ROH guys were there. I mean, the ROH guys were great wrestlers, but I don't think the crowd was convinced that they were big stars. Just like Rick Rude was. It's just the nature. I mean, it's the same over here too. When the Japanese wrestlers come over, if they're not produced and booked
right, with
right
all the
way.
vineyard and video clip and all these things and storyline, all these things. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
So, but that's just the nature of the business, especially in the early 90s.
Yeah. Then I'll go back to what we were talking. Great Muta beat that Chono to become NWA champion. 93, January 4th. Then you told me about that was the name of the event at the Tokyo Dome that night. That year was a Fantastic Story, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I had to go back and look it up. And the funny thing is, though, that the Great Muta Chono NWA title match, it wasn't even the main event.
No, it was maybe
Choshu Tenru.
Yeah, it was. I don't even think it was a semi-main event. I think it was maybe 3rd or 4th from the top.
7th match out of 10 matches. Yeah. And then there was Hellraisers, the Power Warrior, Hawk Warrior against Steiners, that too, that night. And a very interesting match, like, Masa Saito, Hashimoto, Shinya Hashimoto against Dusty Rhodes Jr., who is Goldust, Dusty Rhodes Jr. and Scott Norton, and there was a Ron Simmons against, Tony Holm, who was Ludovic Vorga, a little bit later on. And Tony Holm, he worked as. And there was a Liger against Ultimate Dragon, and a very interesting lineup.
Very good show, very big show. I think there were 60,000, something like that there.
Yeah, the number,
big crowd.
Yeah, like a 63,000, but that's what New Japan office announced, Then most that the newsstand sports paper, if you remember, those, sports paper in Japan that you can pick up every afternoon at the
convenience store,
subway station, train station, and it's a very much reading oriented printed print media culture in Japan. That is also dying here, because when you go to subways and trains now today, that nobody's reading newspapers, nobody's reading magazines. All you are looking through your iPhone, just like America. But
right,
yeah, at the time, for a long time, there's so many sports page tabloid that like a New York Post type of
daily news,
that kind of thing. I mean, not just one, but dozens in Japan, and most of them covered wrestling, And anyhow, that was the day that Great Muta beat Chono to become NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Then he traveled to States. That's when he dropped the NWA title to Barry Windham at Asheville, North Carolina.
A little later on.
Yeah, well, February, the following month.
Yeah, just about a month later.
Yeah.
He dropped it to Barry Windham. And then was he immediately back in New Japan, or did he stick around WCW?
He came back right away. Yeah, I think.
I think a few months later he had a match with Hulk Hogan, who we talked about a few weeks ago.
Right, the same year, that 93 May. It was a Fukuoka Dome. Fukuoka Dome. Hulk Hogan made appearance. First time in 6-7 years, and it was single match. Hulk Hogan against Great Muta. Yeah.
And from around this time, from there he was. I didn't see him in too many big title matches. The more we saw Great Muta, it was more of like a character, like doing an exhibition match.
Yeah,
like
during the year,
Undertaker.
During the year he was Keiji Muto. That's how we talked about it last episode. That the Keiji Muto was not going to do the Great Muta gimmick in Japan when he came back from WCW for the first time. That's what he did in America. Face paint and the blue, the mist and all the heel, very traditional heel
wrestling.
Yeah, and almost stereotypical Oriental Japanese character, right? That he didn't think he was gonna get over, and also he didn't want to, look like the copycat of Great Kabuki, who was 80s superstar. Because Great Muta was introduced in WCW as a son of Great Kabuki, so that he did not want to associate this American storyline into Japanese scene, but ended up playing two different characters. Like one night you were Keiji Muto, and another night you were Great Muta, the heel, and then it's like Doctor, I don't know, Jekyll and
Dr. Jekyll and
Mr. Hyde, and and people had trouble, understanding that character. But at the same time, Great Muta merchandise was selling like crazy. So the New Japan company, always wanted to use Great Muta as a different attraction. So he had Muto himself had to adjust. Okay, when he does Keiji Muto, you got to do the straight wrestling, like you work like a Keiji Muto, But then what can you do when you do the Great Muta? You just have to be extra, you have to do that, do something extra, like a supernatural heel kind of thing,
or theatrical.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but he, for some reason, when he, this May 3rd, 1993. Wrestling Dontaku at the Fukuoka Dome, when he had single match against Hulk Hogan, he chose to be Great Muta instead of Keiji Muto single match.
So he chose that.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
then also New Japan was expecting that footage to go to WCW.
I see.
Yeah, because
Okay.
93 was a 1 year transition that the Hulk Hogan made quite a few trips to Japan, but he was right in between WWE and WCW signing. He wouldn't sign with WCW full time until 94. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I don't know if there anybody out there that can correct me. I don't know if there was ever shown on WCW television in the States. I don't remember that, but if it was,
Yeah,
somebody let me know.
they
But I don't
wanted
think it
to, but
was.
they still did not have the rights. They were even WCW was always. See, I spoke with quite a few people from that time period that they WCW didn't even think Hulk Hogan they could sign the Hulk Hogan for one thing, right? But they did, but they were afraid they weren't gonna be able to use the name Hulk Hogan. They thought the Hulk Hogan, the name title, was trademarked by WWE.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they didn't
I
think,
never knew that.
are we gonna be able to use Hulk Hogan? And then they insisted the Hulk Hogan. No, Hulk Hogan is Hulk Hogan. Then also they were that the legal team were doing the research on the likenesses. Would it be possible for WCW to use Hulk Hogan with yellow trunks and yellow boots? Because that was the point that you could argue at the court.
I see.
Yeah, WWE might WWE though, and Vince McMahon could sue Atlanta and Ted Turner Company and WCW, all three, as a like a trademark infringement. That likeness of Hulk Hogan, that hairdo and the posing and all the way down to costume to ring name to everything else. If you remember when Hulk Hogan signed with WCW in spring of '94, they changed Hogan logo, right? There was no writing on Hulkamania on his yellow bandana. It was
slightly different.
Hogan, same color. See, obviously WrestleMania, that the word WrestleMania, Hulkamania was trademarked and it was protected by WWE. So they were going around corner and they found out they could use yellow color, the same trunks and everything else, but not that Hulkamania logo or WrestleMania wording or anything like that. So they were so careful about it. That's why probably they did tape this match though. Of course, that was in Japanese television that the footage exists, but Hulk Hogan and his Great Muta was going to be used in WCW television, during sometimes during '93, but they kind of nixed the idea.
I believe this was also the match where the Great Muta ran down the long Fukuoka Dome ramp for the clothesline.
Yeah, okay.
He did it a few times, but I remember that image when you watch old New Japan footage. That was always in one of those opening clips.
Oh, okay. He did that at the Budokan too.
He did it a few times.
Yeah, like a 50-yard dash, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and to do the clothesline. Yeah, but it was this footage you can watch in America now, right? Somewhere.
Oh, sure. You can watch it. I think it's on New Japan World.
Okay, New Japan World. Because this is one of the matches American audience should watch and study Hulk Hogan, because it's not the Hulk Hogan you think it is, a Hulk Hogan style. Same yellow trunks, yellow boots, everything else, but not the U and 3 punches, the big boot into your leg drop to go home. Nothing like that. He really wrestled. That was it.
He could do it too.
Of course. We talked about that.
Yeah, we talked about that last week and on our show a couple weeks ago about Hogan.
Yeah. Because because I'm always defending Hulk Hogan for sure. Because people have wrong idea about him, like not being like good. I don't even want to use the word good worker or something, because people so casually use the word, oh, he's a good worker, not knowing what really means, sometimes. But but this is one of the matches that people should watch Hulk Hogan, or for Great Muta for that matter, because when he does Great Muta, when he wrestles as Keiji Muto, he makes sure that he wrestles differently,
And in ways, he's kind of the perfect opponent for a Hulk Hogan character. the big superhero versus the mysterious Great Muta.
Yeah. And
Kind of
also
like a
that can be televised in America, and the meaning is the same,
hmm.
Yeah, positioning is the same. Anyhow, yeah. So that was we covered the '93 January Great Muta winning NWA title and back to America and in North Carolina, Asheville, North Carolina. He dropped the title to Barry Windham, but he did come back and had the Fukuoka Dome single match against Hulk Hogan the same year. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And
Big year, and it just continued to get bigger from 94, 95.
yeah,
It got-
and also you mentioned, people that they asked you about the Keiji Muto, Hiroshi Hase against Steiners, right?
that's one of my personal. I love that match personally, and I was
That's
talking
the
with CD
following year.
Player,
That's '94 Tokyo Dome.
94.
Yeah, Battlefield, January 4th for sure. It's a Tokyo Dome, tradition. But it was '94. It's called Battlefield in Tokyo Dome. Yeah, that was
Very
the main
exciting match.
the Steiners against Hiroshi Hase and Keiji Muto. Oh, it was good
Mhm.
because I had not that I remember like I memorized everything, but for, during that time, if Hase was making a tag team with Muto, where is Kensuke Sasaki, right?
I think that was before
No. Kensuke Sasaki,
on the card.
Hiroshi Hase against Steiners were 91.
Oh, 91. That's
Yeah.
maybe the most famous one or the more famous
Yeah,
one.
more famous because it was Steiner's debut match in Japan.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier when I was actually visiting Japan a year and a half ago, and Fumi-san was doing a kind of Q&A at the Totokan wrestling merchandise store in Tokyo.
Okay.
You were, yeah.
Okay.
You were interviewing Rick Steiner.
Yeah.
Remember?
Of course.
And so many.
When was that? Was it a couple years ago?
About a year and a half ago.
Oh,
Like
bad memory or something.
because Rick Steiner was in town for Jimmy Suzuki's
Show.
show.
Yeah.
So most of the questions that we heard from the crowd were about that match.
Yeah, Hase Kensuke against Steiners. That was 91, their debut match. And also they had this double teaming, Bulldog and other, like a double teaming from the corner or the Tequila Sunrise or all those things. And the first time Japanese audience actually witnessed Scott Steiner's best looking Frankensteiner that day.
Yeah, and a Steiner screwdriver.
Yeah, Steiner screwdriver. Right.
That was a big reaction. Amazing reaction. And Scott Steiner knew it, and he ran around the ring and he knew.
Right. Because they
perfectly.
come up with new moves that, the kind of suplex oriented, but the Steiner brothers always came up with this bunch of stuff that people haven't seen. It was always amazing. And great athletes, Yeah. But anyhow, this your favorite Muto and Hase against Steiners. That's 94. And I was wondering where the hell is Kensuke Sasaki here? And yes, he was the Hellraisers that night.
Okay.
Kensuke Sasaki as Power Warrior, teaming with Hulk Warrior, going up against Scott Norton and Hercules Hernandez, the Jurassic Powers. That was their peak.
Very underrated, or not. It's not talked about enough, that team of Hercules and Scott Norton, because
they were created to be the regular opponent of Hellraisers.
All four of them are just, you don't see guys like that too much anymore. Four big dudes.
Actually, Kensuke Sasaki is the littlest one in there,
which is funny because he's also huge.
Yeah, but not as tall.
In his own way.
He's in his own way. Yeah, like a real powerhouse for Japanese, wrestler. And also that I always another character that I always kind of defend, because today's fans don't understand the Hellraisers as much. Probably a lot of, I'm not bad mouthing the program, but you have your, what's that, the TV documentary on pro wrestling? Dark Side. Dark Side. Yeah, when they did the Road Warriors piece, that Mike Hulk, Mike Hegstrand, Hulk, already deceased, and the only people they could interview was obviously still around, the Animal, Paul Ellering, and the Minneapolis wrestlers like Barry Durso and them guys, right?
Mhm.
But they treated this Hellraiser's portion so poorly, you know.
There's a lot more to that part of the story with Minnesota and Brad Renegans.
Yeah, but yeah, of course, and also they treated that story like, yeah, Hulk went to Japan and cut his own deal, right? And they kind of almost treated Hellraiser as a joke, like a knockoff of Road Warriors. No, knockoff, fine, but um, it was treated as something really, somebody like Road Warrior Hawk, like the member, let's say, member your Aerosmith or Rolling Stones or somebody, coming to Japan and actually signing an exclusive contract with Japanese company, then took native Japanese wrestler as his full-time partner. Then they came up with matching costume and came up with, they really toured Japan. Hellraisers had their own run, and it was very, very special for 90s Japanese fans. You know what I'm saying?
And you still see the merchandise and the T-shirts and the videos today pretty regularly. If you're a Japanese wrestling fan and you go around to Japan, like Totokan,
Yeah.
Power Warriors
It
stuff.
really gave Kensuke Sasaki his superstar rub from Hawk. And Hawk treated this Japanese run as something special that he's done on his own. Because Road Warriors, they already had 10-year run on, before that, and he wanted to do something different, but didn't want to. Hawk didn't want to call it New Road Warriors or anything like that. So he had to come up with name, and they did not have the name of the official name for the team until they start the actual tour. And Masa Saito had a feeling that they could use the name New Road Warriors or something like that, but Mike said no. Road Warriors means animal and hawk. He's so willing to do this venture. He was so willing to give his time, and he had a full-time contract with Japan and had Japanese Kensuke Sasaki as a partner, full-time partner, and he took it as like his new run, and he was listening to Ozzy Osbourne, song at the nightclubs in Roppongi, and then they were playing Hellraiser, and asked the bartender, what's the song? Is that a Black Sabbath? No, it's Ozzy Osbourne. All right, solo, right? So it was a ting ting in his head, the Iron Man Black Sabbath was the theme music for the Road Warriors. This is going to be a new run, another run, new chapter of his wrestling career. And he felt that, right, not Black Sabbath music, but this Ozzy Osbourne song is perfect for a new run. And then named the team Hellraisers. That's
like his solo project.
Yeah, it's epic. Yeah. Then, so there was back to Keiji Muto, right? So this time, January.
So we're around January 94 and then 95. Last week we talked about his match with Nobuki Takada.
Yeah. But there was another Tokyo Dome match the same year, 90. Fukuoka Dome, not Tokyo Dome, but May. Yeah. No, Great Muta against Antonio Inoki. Antonio Inoki's final countdown before his actual retirement.
That's right.
He did that about a year and a half, 2 years. Like Antonio Inoki, 50-some-year-old Antonio Inoki taking one opponent at a time, like a final to have a final single match against very meaningful opponents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Great Muta against Antonio Inoki actually happened in 94.
In 94.
Yeah, I was there.
What was the reaction to the Inoki versus Muta match?
It was actually mixed because it was always rare to have actual Antonio Inoki, putting tights and shoes and actually wrestle, around that time, So he only did maybe once or twice a year. But when Inoki wrestled, he really worked hard to put himself in shape, like a one-match shape, that he worked very interesting match, and the finish was very interesting. That Antonio Inoki putting sleeper hold on Great Muta, sleeper hold, but it's not fading, not giving up, not tapping up, but he's still squeezing the sleeper hold, and then he let it go, then he covers 1, 2, 3. So that was the only time I saw sleeper hold was the move that beat guy 1, 2, 3. You know what I'm saying?
As a pin. And
As a pin. Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I only usually see that in video games, and that it's one of those moments where you always remember it because it's the only time it really happened.
Yeah. So, and also Inoki doesn't juice that often, right? So it was bloody Antonio Inoki. Yeah,
it's always No, it's always a little special when you see the blood on the opponent, like a 92 with Hase as well. You always remember those matches with Muta because of the theatrics.
Yeah, because Great Muta does the extreme heel thing that he uses foreign object. He uses chair. He uses this crowbars, or anything in the building you can grab on that he uses as a foreign object, right? And he even cut Inoki's forehead open. Like, oh, to that you do that to Inoki? Oh my gosh, right?
Wow.
Yeah. But it was an interesting night at the Fukuoka Dome. Inoki against Great Muta. Shinya Hashimoto against Fujinami, and Hiroshi Hase against Riki Choshu single, and another interesting one was Masa Chono against Fujiwara, Yoshiaki Fujiwara, single match, and Rick Rude against Sting. Very interesting.
Is that where Rick Rude hurt his back?
Probably, yes.
I think it was.
Yeah, that was and then that was it, and he called it quit, right? Pretty much.
That was his last match, I think. He couldn't wrestle after that.
Right. But that was around the time that not all, but so many American wrestlers, especially guys from Minnesota,
lots
took on Lloyd's of London insurance.
Mr. Perfect, Rick Rude with it. They
got a lot of money from God, that. Yeah. So after a while, Lloyd's of London stopped signing professional wrestlers because they're gonna collect it.
Right.
They realize that wow, these guys are going to get hurt. And sure thing, right? So, or even if it wasn't all that bad, you can still apply for this insurance, and doctor will say yes, these guys are disabled. Yeah. Yeah. Nothing fraud about it, but but that's a side story of it. But yes, Great Muta against Antonio Inoki did happen in May of '94 at the Fukuoka Dome. That's something that if people are interested in, they should watch it.
You can find that on Japan World, I'm
just
sure.
like we just went over this, the lineup of '94 wrestling Dontaku from Fukuoka Dome. I think every single match is interesting.
On this card?
Yeah, because the opening match was young Kojima against young Nagata, like
the third generation guys.
Yeah, and then Ishizawa El Samurai against Takai and Otani. Ishizawa, of course, later on, Kendo Kashin, and everybody, if you follow Japanese wrestling after that, it's like, wow, watching first match is interesting because these guys were in first match once upon a time,
Yeah, maybe it's a good starting point if you wanted to get into this era of New Japan in the 90s, is wrestling Dontaku 94 with in Fukuoka.
Yeah, funny thing is that kind of makes me old, but 90s are like really ancient for younger fans today, because it's what, 26, 25, 26 years.
It's not that long ago. I remember it.
Yeah, but when you think about the movies from 26 years ago,
It really depends on the quality of it.
Yeah.
The good ones they always feel the same. They always feel good. And like you're saying about the Inoki and Muta match, it doesn't feel dated.
Because it's an art piece. Yes, it's a masterpiece. Oh God, yes.
And they didn't have to focus on any gimmicks other than just wrestling, just because of how they were and how the personality. They both have big personalities in the ring, and they both clash. Actually,
they do very little in that ring. If you think about today's standard, how many big moves are there? Like it's doing a whole bunch of big moves and kicking out isn't necessarily is a formula for good match. Doing less is doing more, right? Sometimes. So
These both had like 100% charisma, and that's all they really
just
needed
by
to do.
standing and walking around, even like took 2 or 3, 4 minutes before they even locked up, locked up, right?
Or
So,
they had a face off on the ramp before they were even in the ring.
yeah. So those are the things. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
maybe
it's
just
not
bounce off the rope. Just bounce off the rope and spit mist into the air, and that's it. But no contact.
Yeah, for a long time. Yeah, that's good though. Actually, it's like
Smart.
if some people have this idea of what makes good matches, it's not one sided. It's not one dimension. It's like a multi-dimensional. It's like what makes good movie, what makes good music. It's not guitar solo that makes good song. It could be rhythm, it could be lyrics, it could be it could be anything, right? So
it could be what the situation needs.
Yeah. So it's
simply.
like that should be applied to wrestling match too. These guys do what they do so unique, original way that you just have to sit and watch instead of being judgmental. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was today's part 2 of Keiji Muto. Yes.
So we're in the mid 90s by now. 94 was big year. 95 he won the IWGP title from Hashimoto in Fukuoka Dome, same venue.
Yeah.
It was also the year we talked a little bit about it last week with UWFI and his matches with Takada.
That was 95, wasn't it?
90. That was 95. That's right. 95 and 96. There were two.
Yeah.
So from 95 and 96, I think there was a match from around this time where he also had it was with Jushin Liger, and we saw another layer of Jushin Liger too. It was another one of those more theatric matches. It was when Liger had his mask ripped off and there was the makeup. Do you recall that one?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, no titles involved. It was just like an attraction.
Yeah, you didn't need that. You didn't need a title, single title or anything. But the Great Muta against Liger, what they would do, and they all surprise you. And Liger is such an artist that he'll come up with something that people don't expect. I mean, like putting makeup, Great Muta like makeup, Liger makeup underneath the mask, Yeah.
I was a big part of New Japan's history. I think that's one of their highlight reel moments in the intro show to me in my head. I see that's one of the things that is so New Japan. Both wrestlers are two guys that you always automatically associate with New Japan, even though they both went around the world, and Keiji Muto didn't spend much time in New Japan after the 2000s.
Right. Well, year 2000, he spent the entire year with WCW.
Yeah,
much.
And that was
he
totally different.
And he really witnessed the dying day of Nitro and WCW from inside. I had a meeting, not a meeting, but I used to bring my Japanese tourists to do the summer. It's called Body Slam Circuit. That I take like 50 to 100 Japanese tourists to go to America and go watch WCW Nitro and SummerSlam WWE and ECW Arena and visiting a wrestler at home and all this in 1 week period. And there was a day that we spent one afternoon with Muto.
Wow.
Yeah.
Must have been great.
Yeah. Everybody get picture taken with Muto and get autograph and a nice lunch with Muto.
Ooh.
And then he was saying that WCW is going down openly.
Well, I don't think he was treated too well there behind the scenes from what I've read.
And then also that was Vince Russo days too. And plus year 2000, how terrible Nitro was, and people try to forget about it. But do you remember they brought in whole bunch of rookies and the new guys into Nitro, like a Powers That Be, and whole bunch of guys. I forgot their names.
Sure, Chuck Palumbo,
of course,
Sean O'Hare. Yeah, and some of them ended up in Japan a little after that
with the WCW and New Japan partnership.
Yeah,
and there's another guy who did the mic work a lot. Mike something. Mike. God, so hard to remember.
Mark Jindrak.
Yeah, no, he was a big guy. And also he came to Japan and then went to Mexico, and he had a nice career. But see, it's hard to remember. There's a dozen guys that was occupying who did the most mic work, instead of working in the ring. But they introduced like a dozen guys at Nitro, right? And to fill up 3-hour Nitro and the Thunder the following day, which kind of nobody watched. But Keiji Muto was watching this, from inside. This company is going down, and that was during the time that he had to do Great Muta every week. He was never Keiji Muto. Right.
And he was placed with Vampiro.
Yeah, Vampiro is fine. Yeah, but they were telling him to do the moonsault every week, and he told them in the office that he has bad knees and doesn't do the moonsault. If he did that, probably once a year, that's about it. But Vince Russo and his guys knew only Keiji Muto with moonsault, so he was telling him to do the moonsault every TV match. He's like, no, I ain't doing it, right? It's like he had problem with that too. And also, they never told guys what are the script or the storyline for the next week's Nitro, because they're changing every week. That got messed up, and he hated every minute of it, though. Keiji Muto. Yeah.
So is he living in the States, or is he flying back and forth?
No. He was living in the States the whole year. Yeah.
And Chono would show up around this time too. I remember him showing up on TV in the late 90s or 2000s.
Actually, Chono was the one who did the initial NWO Japan storyline. Then Great Muta joined it. So
that was around 97?
95, 96, 97. That NWO Japan thing lasted about 3 years, not just Masa Chono, but the Tenzan, Hiro Saito, and what's a fake Sting? Jeff Farmer. Yeah, he had the fake Sting in Japan, and also
Scott Norton.
Scott Norton in Japan, but wearing NWO t-shirts and a beret. Yes, and then they had like a 10-guy crew, and they did. And when NWO were dying, they quietly switched that to Team 2000 with same black t-shirt, because
looked the same.
Looked the same, but they're afraid that that not afraid, but New Japan and WCW business kind of start falling out, right? And NWO thing, they could probably, like, New Japan couldn't use the NWO logo anymore or something, and they're afraid, so they quietly switched the gimmick and the t-shirt and all the logo into Team 2000. Same, Chono was top guy, and so people are not supposed to notice it. But then again, NWO t-shirt was so big that people were wearing it, like a rock and roll t-shirt at the time. Yeah. Then Muto joined the NWO, but instead he decided to spend the whole year, the 2000, because he was, I think he was like looking, and the New Japan offices changing period. And he should just kind of disappear for a while, and observe everything from outside, watch WCW and American scene, and look New Japan from faraway side. And what happened is he never went back to New Japan after that.
So he used that time to kind of study his next move, for his next move.
Yeah, and then also he felt that he was like getting stale, because he was back home in Japan for 10 years and had this IWGP champion run, Great Muta run, and long hair to the beard one to he tried to do different things, and domestically you could do so much that what other people cannot do is that Keiji Muto can leave and go to America and fit right in. This is what he can do. He's an international superstar. Probably, Shinya Hashimoto is so Japanese, right? That he probably don't want to leave home. and go to America and then be in WCW dressing room for the entire year. That would be really hard for Hashimoto to do. But Muto is an international superstar. That, well, no problem. I'm going to America. See you guys later, type of thing. Yeah.
He could adapt really easily, and he already had such a, not legacy, but he had the proper experience. He was all over the world by the time we were talking 2000s. He had already been in
Yeah, and
business
also
for about
you have
15.
people like a Sting and Steiner, the good friend of Muto.
Mm.
Yeah.
He kind of helped bring that style up. I mean, along with the stars of WCW at the time, so he kind of fit right in from the
Yeah.
get-go.
Then also not just fitting, but the those 90s superstar all respected him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, did you know Goldberg respected him?
What's the story with that?
Yeah, Goldberg was saying that Muto, in Goldberg's opinion, he thought Keiji Muto was the best wrestler ever.
What did he base it on? Just watching him, or did he have matches with him?
They didn't have, Goldberg didn't have single match against Keiji Muto ever, I don't think. And 2 years later, when Muto was doing All Japan thing, All Japan Muto brought Bill Goldberg's in for big money, But at the time, Goldberg was kind of hurt and didn't even do the sledgehammer, that he had to use spear as his finish, and he wasn't 100%. But Goldberg was like superstar that the people were waiting to come over, for the first time, and did a lot of interviews, and he was openly telling people that he really felt the Keiji Muto was the best ever. I mean, best wrestler he ever watched.
Have any other foreign wrestlers said something similar about?
More than one. I can recall. Yeah, like a lot of people did say, because that's why he got the nickname during 2000 run, that the master of wrestling, Keiji Muto, right?
Yeah, the genius.
Genius, yeah. So yeah, and also the very animated, that the way he moves, that's that flashing driving elbow thing, the snap mare into elbow, like real fast. Yeah, or the we call it sokten elbow, that that the cartwheel into elbow into the corner.
Handspring elbow.
Yeah, handspring elbow. Yeah. Dana Brooke thing. Yeah, yeah. That those things. See, Muto was doing it in his rookie years, but these are the original. See, Muto is a type of wrestler who is not going to just use somebody's move. It has to be all original. Moonsault, yeah, there was a moonsault before Keiji Muto, but he was the one who made it into a very famous move, And after Muto, people start doing it,
And he has his own sequence. You got to do the Schmidt backbreaker. You got to do the backbreaker
right.
first.
Schmidt, then the walk over the guys. Then the climb. Yeah, then doesn't even go outside the apron. He's gonna climb the turnbuckle.
And he doesn't do a variation. He doesn't do it on the floor. He doesn't do it to the side. It's that Keiji Muto style.
And lower and faster and farther out.
Yeah, no air, just all snap. He snaps back.
Right, snaps back and far away, like
very far. Sometimes
not
very
in the middle of the ring, but farther than that, like a 2/3 away of the ring.
Yeah.
So that's like he really, really put his own little ingredient in there.
His twist.
Yeah, original.
It's his version.
And his rhythm. Even when he does certain moves, when he gets up, he looks like Muto.
Yeah, I think like you were talking about the flashing elbow earlier, or the handspring elbow. I think we notice those because a character like Muto spends so much time slowly walking around the ring and staring at the opponent, staring at the fans. There's nothing happening until he explodes with just one.
Then he runs so
move.
Fast, like
so
animal.
Really,
it
really. That's what I think helps us notice.
It's a rhythm. Yeah.
He's very economical with his movements. He just uses it when
he had bad knees for 20 years.
Mm.
Then he learned to work around it, and he made career out of it. Yeah.
And even still, he's
Oh, today, yeah.
yeah.
Oh God,
Modern.
58. No, we haven't even got there yet, but
Oh,
yeah,
we're far away from it still.
Right, today's 58-year-old bad knee, artificial bone put in. Muto does the Frankensteiner. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And he's a champion again.
Yeah.
He's back in the news.
So, but during 90s, so he had these runs, and and then he had this 95 Nobuhiko Takada UWFI against Muto match that the people thought was a sure thing. Takada will go over. We learned a lot about it though, because it's New Japan's show. People didn't realize it was Riki Choshu Booker New Japan show, and the reason the UWFI New Japan all out war, this Takada Muto single match happened because UWF International was losing business. Until then they were arrogant.
So we saw that kind of half a year feud between the two companies.
Yeah.
Into 96.
96. In January, January of 96, the Nobuhiko Takada did go over on Hashimoto to win to go over on Muto again, for the so they did one win, one lose, But the saddest part is though, people don't remember the one Takada went over. Always remember the very first match that Muto beat Takada.
Why don't they remember Takada's?
That's the funny part of how people remember things. See, when Misawa beat Jumbo Tsuruta for the first time, epic, right? The Misawa, getting rid of Tiger Mask, and he becomes his own person, and new green, emerald green costume, and you start becoming Mitsuharu Misawa. Then you have very important single match against the legend Jumbo Tsuruta, and Misawa beat him for the first time, 1, 2, 3 in the middle of the ring. Historical moment. People remember the match real well. Very following tour, one month later, Jumbo bring at the next Budokan show. Nobody remembers that one. It's not fun. People's memory is a very funny thing, right?
Why is that?
Does that make sense?
I mean, I get it, but I don't know what the main reason is for people. They just want to remember I guess they just want to remember the joy.
Well, people remember things the way they want to remember.
Yeah.
You do that. I do that. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Yeah. So there were, in reality, Keiji Muto against Takada happened twice,
Yeah.
One win, one lose. Just like, fair wrestling business, right? But in a big feud like this, almost like a political wrestling feud, company against company, you have to beat the guy first. That's the only match people remember.
The first meeting.
Yeah. That's funny. I learned about this because I do remember Takada beating Muto, win back, like 3 months later, the following year, January's Tokyo Dome, same matchup. Takada beat Muto this time, but people don't remember this one that well. It's always first encounter. How big the show was, how Muto was so good that that was the night a lot of wrestling fans kind of gave up on UWF, UWF idea.
Must be.
Yeah.
Between that and then, well, Takada is a different path. It's a different story. We could go on all about that, but we should probably stick with Muto.
Oh no, of course. It's too big of a subject because UWF is something that people believe they were going to change wrestling into legitimate contest, and that's a whole new concept that we can talk about it episode after episode after episode.
Yeah. It's almost still going in ways.
But, because after UWF philosophy and other things, and they're going to Pancras type of era, and you really become MMA, Then that's around the same time global phenomena that things like UFC start happening, Not today's UFC, but back then they said it was Ultimate Fighting Championship by Gracie's, you know, and that was all new things, and still had the link between MMA and wrestling business then. But that's
there was a
another subject
disconnect.
for another day. Yeah.
Yes. So let's go from around. So it was 99. So he was in WCW for a while, and before that, he was doing the
1 year.
NWO.
Yeah, NWO. Then during this NWO Japan period, they did do that back and forth tour, back and forth. You know, Great Muta and Masachono appear a few episodes of Nitro with NWO Hulk Hogan and, you know, Nash and Hall and all these guys. Then, you know, that to make sure that the NWO Japan is really affiliated with America NWO, and, you know, American audience on Nitro saw Japanese, you know, wrestlers as a part of NWO. Then they show that on Japanese television, right? Muto and Chono went to America and then they did this, you know, thing with Hulk Hogan and, you know, Six and Nash and Hall, and right, they're real NWO, and then they were really doing the business, you know. And every tour, you know, the WCW didn't really send their guys, but occasionally they send in guys like you know, Buff Bagwell, or, you know, the actual NWO member from America, and they toured Japan.
Scott Hall, I think.
Scott Hall and Kevin Nash were the most expensive ones, so they only worked a couple times.
I see.
Yeah, not the regular tour, but more like a Tokyo Dome, Fukuoka Dome type of show. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, Nash, Hall, and not X-Pac, but at the time it was Six. Sean Waltman, my friend.
Yes, 1, 2, 3 Kid.
Yeah, they worked Tokyo, Fukuoka Dome. Yeah,
but after the WCW run, because like you said, Muto mentioned that the company was going out of business. So late 2000, early 2001, he did come back to Japan, but he came back through Inoki's
Inoki Bombaye,
Inoki
yeah.
Bombaye's show.
Right, and right. It was at the time not complete 100% MMA show though. It's not like Muto came back and worked MMA match. It was a wrestling match, professional wrestling match in that MMA like atmosphere. Of course, the producer Antonio Inoki wanted people to think it was all MMA, right? But yeah, Muto came back and worked the show, and that was a night he had a hoodie on. Then as he took the hoodie on, wow, he shaved his head.
He's bald. He's like Steve Austin or Goldberg.
With goatee, yeah. But the new look, it looked good though, because long hair was a little thin in top, and he had to do something about it, you know, for a long time.
Yeah, I remember some of those. He looked like. Do you remember Robin Hood's? You know, his merry men. Kind of look from in the middle. It's
not that it. He had more problem than you and I can talk about, you know.
So okay, but he came back with the cool new look.
Oh God!
He teamed up with his opponent, his rival at the show. He teamed up with Takara. Teamed up against I believe it was Ken Shamrock. Yeah, Ken Shamrock and Don Fry.
Right, Ken Shamrock. Yeah, and Takada in it. Inoki thought people believed it was MMA. Nah.
I mean, by then, 2000, it was Pride was already established.
Yeah, Pride
was huge.
Yeah. And I had trouble with that. Yeah, K1 and Pride.
K1 too, yeah.
K1 and Pride using professional wrestler into MMA match, you know, because professional wrestlers are a lot more famous than any MMA fighters from any, you know, like Russian MMA or some American MMA fighters. They're MMA fighters, but are they popular? Are they famous? Always professional wrestlers are more famous than any MMA guys. And I'm not talking about today's UFC, but early MMA era.
Early shoot fighters.
Yeah, strong link with wrestling business and MMA business. And MMA always needed professional wrestler to participate on the event. And the bad thing was, though, See, Japanese dark age of dark years of professional wrestling begins because people like Kendo Kashin, people like Yuji Nagata, probably Nakanishi or something. They were all college wrestling champion. Nakanishi went to Olympic and everything. But and also Yuji Nagata, yes, national college wrestling champion, and he went into MMA match with 2-day training, 2 days
against Crow Cop,
and or the Federer too.
It's
crazy.
Almost like it's like practical joke. It's like the late night shows. It's something they would do to one of the comedians, put somebody who's completely inexperienced in this field against the master of the field at the time.
Yeah.
And he was champion, wasn't he?
IW, yeah. So it was like Inoki pulled almost like it was as if Inoki pulled the trigger on his own company.
Yeah, and that fascinates a lot of fans because it's hard to get into his mind. What was the reasoning? What was the thinking behind that?
I think Inoki was all ready to leave, and it was like sure enough, evidently he sold the New Japan company to, the Ukes, the game company, a couple of years later, right? I think he was all ready to do that, and also he was no longer Inoki was no longer active professional wrestler, and it was still famous, more famous than around that time period. You have the Omisoka, the New Year's Eve. You have NHK have this big singing, pop music festival thing, and other network channels, Channel 4, Channel 6, Channel 8, each had their MMA show all night long, right?
Yeah.
And one's K1, one's Pride, but the third production was by Channel 4. It was Inoki Bombardier. That I think Inoki was like his own company by then,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. New people.
It was after UFO, wasn't it?
After UFO. And UFO was never a real company, like they never cooperated themselves in that, it was like more of a name of the show,
I see.
Yeah, see. New Japan corporate, All Japan company, but the UFO right after he retired, and he took people like Naoya Ogawa, and he used Satoru Sayama as an advisor and used his guys, and he was creating like right between MMA and professional wrestling type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it worked during 80s and 90s, like a very MMA-ish professional wrestling. But after Millennium, real MMA was happening, right?
Right.
You couldn't work MMA matches anymore.
Because we know what it
looked
like.
Yeah. So I think Inoki miscalculated a little bit on that, aspect of it.
And again, that's probably another show we'll have to do something.
Yeah, because in Inoki's heyday, he could pull it off. He was, even the work matches, work MMA, he was telling people for decades, I don't know about other people's wrestling, but my wrestling is real. And that was Antonio Inoki's philosophy. You know what I'm saying? I grew up watching that.
It's a different kind of mindset to get into.
But... Yeah. So Inoki, as the big hint, Inoki was like Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon in one person.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Hey, they probably looking like that. Yeah.
Okay, so let's wrap it up for now. And next week we're going to come back with part 3.
We have to, because Keiji Muto is such a huge star, maybe the biggest star of our time, right?
And he's still going strong.
Yes.
I saw the picture of the Weekly Pro Wrestling. He's on the cover of that this week.
Yeah.
It's like nothing ever really changed.
And also that will bring back the history lessons that the Keiji Muto with IWGP belt, right? And Keiji Muto is Triple Crown belt. Now Keiji Muto is GHC belt. Oh my gosh, he really did work all 3 Major League of Professional Wrestling in Japan and become champion. And he always means relevant. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think also that using Keiji Muto in 2001 in All Japan will give us a really good glimpse of what we call the Dark Ages.
Dark Age begins, and also Giant Baba dying in 99 and struggling All Japan, and Mrs. Baba and Misawa and his guys all leaving the company.
Like
everybody but Kawada and Fuji. Oh God, it was like new century. I felt it was.
Yeah, it was like BCAD kind of.
Yeah, it was scary when you think about it. Well, now I have goosebumps. Yeah, it's 20. It doesn't seem like it's been 20 years, but we gotta go into, part 3. We have to do this part 3 because Keiji Muto done so much, and by going through what happened year 2000, 2001, 2002 into more current stories, that we will have understanding and clear picture. I mean, like a clear understanding of bigger picture. Yeah.
And we'll have all the details next week. So let's start the Dark Ages with
Dark Ages. Well, it doesn't sound good, but yes.
But it's very interesting, and we need to, because that's where I really kind of fell off as a fan for a couple of years.
Oh, did you? Was, right.
Because it was splitting apart in the States too at the same time, like the entire industry.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, of course. And also when year 2000 came, and we really felt the world would be a new place, right? And a lot of things did happen, and in wrestling and your life too, And yeah, of course.
But next week, the next episode we'll do next week, it's going to connect the episodes we did
all the way to the current scene. Yes, yeah. The part 3 of Keiji Muto.
Part 3.
Let's do it.
That's right. So before we go,
yes, sir.
We can find us on Twitter. Fumi,
Twitter name Fumihiko Dayo, Fumihiko Fumihiko Dayo on Twitter, or just Fumisaito on Twitter. I mean, on Facebook. Message me before friend me.
Yeah, and I'm Justin at Justin M Nipper on Twitter. Next week, get ready for part 3 finale of Keiji Muto. So
long from Tokyo.
Write that